The Attorney General's Department has discontinued the case against 6 persons who were standing trial for allegedly aiding and abetting the export of cocaine from Ghana. Their lawyers say this was expected and that, quote, the prosecution's action of withdrawing the case has maintained the integrity of our criminal jurisprudence. What integrity are they talking about, and how does this reflect on Ghana's seriousness with the fight against narcotics? So how come that Delali Emmanuel successfully sneaked in 12.5 kilograms of cocaine into the United Kingdom, and yet here in Ghana there are no accomplices? This is today's big story with me, Stephen Enti. Today's big story is brought to you in association with Lifeline Properties, quality, affordable and comfortable housing. Now, I'm sure you may be familiar with the case involving the Ghanaian-Austrian lady Delali Emmanuel, who was arrested at Heathrow Airport with 12.5 kilograms of cocaine. She was sentenced to 8 years, 8 months in jail on her own plea by the Isleworth Crown Court in London. Now, following from that, 6 people, businessman Alhaji Dawood, Nana Equia Amponsa, Sadalia Nuhu, Foreign Ministry Officer Abiel Ashite Ama, another Foreign Service Officer Theophilus Kisi, and Ahmed Abubakar, Protocol Officer at the VIP Lounge of the Kotoka International Airport, who were arrested in Ghana as her alleged accomplices have all been set free. The Attorney General's Department today filed a case of nolle prosequi, a legal term meaning unwilling to pursue. Is the AG's decision not surprising? Well, we're going to get onto the telephone line lawyer and president of the Legal Advocacy Foundation, Dr. Maurice Ampao, and then former Attorney General Ayiko to also be joining us on the telephone lines for some analysis on this. But before then, I have with me Kwachi Afre Nuyama. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Steve.
You were in court today. Fantastic decision, I think it is. It's incredible that a person who has been jailed for 8 years, 8 months in London in connection with the export of cocaine from Ghana. Now, the 6 people who were arrested as alleged accomplices who helped her in the export have been set free. And the state says, we're not interested. Is it not surprising?
Well, if you look at how events unfolded over the past 3 months, how this trial proceeded, and especially looking at the last adjourned date where presiding judge Francis Obri mentioned that, you know, the fact that state prosecutors came to court time and again given reason that they were yet to conclude their investigation, and that formed a major basis for all the adjournments that we had. It's not so surprising, I tell you, on that basis, because many people were thinking, and journalists and lawyers, and I'm sure those who have really followed this case, that what was going to be the next, you know, pronouncement of state prosecutors in court today, especially again looking at the fact that they said they hadn't found anything, any concrete evidence to prosecute these people. So the first comment, and the state prosecutors spoke in court first today, panel of Mamata, Chief State Attorney, she mentioned that the state has filed a nolle prosequi, and indeed the presiding judge Francis Obri read out rather brief statement saying that the state in effect wants to discontinue with the so far as prosecuting this matter is concerned, and so the court had no other option than to drop the charges. But all in all, for me, really, following this case, I cannot say that I was really surprised, because it got to a time.
You anticipated this because of the delays, right? The
yes,
delays
actually.
in not bringing evidence to court, or what? There was no case?
No, it got to a time
that Attorney General didn't have a case, that they couldn't investigate to find anything out?
I mean,
it beats my mind, really.
This is it. these persons have been arrested. The Attorney General and state prosecutors insisted that they had a substantive enough evidence to prosecute them. In fact, lawyers for some of these suspects, notably Alhaji Dawood's lawyer, Adwetua, had even spoken to Joy News and indicated that his client facilitated Nayele's movement through the VVIP section. And this was no news so far as what the prosecutors knew was concerned. And even in respect of that, the state prosecutors haven't, as I mentioned earlier, indicated that they had enough evidence. Anytime they came to court, they said, well, we have not concluded an investigation. And that gave reason to, to imagine what again are they looking for?
More like they were just frustrating the process.
More like they were just frustrating the process. And you would be tempted to think, as I was, that really they didn't have any nothing
I'll
more.
quickly have to go onto the telephone line and get Honorable Ayikwe Otu, who is the former Attorney General of the Republic of Ghana. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
How are you?
Well, I'm good.
Great. Now, usually, what will make the state pursue a case of nolle prosequi, and what considerations go into such a decision?
Well, thank you. It's not an easy, straightforward, answer to give. Usually, the state is not obliged, or the Attorney General is not obliged to give a reason why he's entering nolle prosequi. Nobody can compel the Attorney General to do that. So it's not a very straightforward answer that anybody can give you.
I see. So when a decision has been made, what do you consider before going ahead to put in such an application before a court?
Well, let's say that you could say that it is not politically expedient, for example, to try a particular individual. That could be a reason. You could also come to the conclusion that the evidence is not solid, and that is kind of 55-45 kind of relationship or percentage, and that you are not likely to win, because you know that in criminal matters you prove the case beyond reasonable doubt. So that could also be a reason. Again, your witnesses could even disappoint you. I mean, people who have solid evidence, first-hand information of what they saw and what
they didn't
they
see,
heard and what they know, have now developed cold feet, and they no longer want to, assist the prosecution to do the case. All these could be various scenarios.
I see.
What can happen? Again, you can even have what we call a show trial. You just decide that, hey, look, let's put some people there, let the people talk about it. We are fighting that. And somewhere along the line, you say, look, just go enter nolle prosequi, and that's it. We don't owe anybody an explanation.
So, seriously, tell me, if you were the Attorney General today, would you have discontinued this case?
It depends upon the evidence available to her, which might have led her to do this. My own position is this. Now, we know that these people were rounded up, arrested, and charged according to the security agencies because of the roles they played. The fact that the person used the VVIP, somebody facilitated that.
That's right.
Took her through the VVIP. Somebody even carried something in the handbag to her on the tarmac and things like that. These are issues that raise or arouse our suspicion in terms of maybe official, hand in what was happening.
But these could not be considered as evidence good enough to go to court and prosecute a person?
Some noise
Right, I'm
some
asking.
disturbance came onto the line.
Right,
So
I apologize
I had to
for.
stop somewhere.
I apologize. I apologize for that. But I'm asking that you make references to the fact that some of these officials who were arrested suggested some form of some kind of official handling in this matter.
Somebody
I'm
is speaking in the background, which is getting into a conversation.
Right, I'll have you hold briefly, and we'll fix that problem, and then I'll return to you. Thank you very much. Ayuko Tu is a former Attorney General of the Republic of Ghana. I'm also joined on the other telephone line by Dr. Maurice Ampao, who is a lawyer, president of the Legal Advocacy Foundation. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Dr. Ampao, now I know that I should be saying, you said so. In my last interview with you, when we were discussing how far this case would go, you made a
unfortunately, your line is not very clear.
Right.
Can I come again?
Right. I'm saying that the last time we had a chat, you did mention to me that you would not be surprised if you woke up one morning and this case has been discontinued. I'm asking you again, that does it come to you as a surprise at all that the Attorney General decided to file a case of nolle prosequi in this situation?
To be frank, let me by saying that I'm not surprised about what actually happened because I foresaw it coming, because you realize that this is a well-calculated, orchestrated trial. People were just running it up to satisfy certain interests without due diligence. No surveillance work was done, and they were just running it up, presented. And I know that they did not have any case against these people who were presented. There's possibility to satisfy certain interests. And exactly what has happened is that there's no show. The prosecution could not go ahead to prosecute because they don't have enough evidence.
So what would you describe this? Is it a case of political expediency or just...
I think the line is so bad.
Right. We'll try if you could reposition yourself, and we'll see whether we can have a decent conversation. We'll return to you and see if the line will be good. Afraid, but Ayuko Tu is still on the line, though. Ayuko Tu, Honorable Ayuko Tu, are you there, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
We're getting some bad feedback from your line. Let me try and see whether you can hear me clearer now. Now, I was saying that you did mention earlier that there could have been indications of a possible official interference. I don't know whether to call it interference or complicitness in the matter. But I asked also that, are these not enough to take to court and prosecute these individuals?
Sorry, you mean they don't have evidence to go forward or what?
Yes, I'm asking if of all the issues that happen, of all the fact that the lawyer for one of the accused, Etia Ado, did mention indeed specifically that his client facilitated Nayele's transport access, actually, Nayele's access through the VVIP and all of that. I'm saying that, do you not see enough evidence in this matter to prosecute at all?
Well, you see, before you charge somebody with an offense, you start it with an arrest. Then the arrest will go with some investigations. You've got to do investigations to gather evidence. Now, if at the end of your gathering of evidence you are satisfied that these people are guilty, then you can put them before court. You understand?
Yes.
And you know that the proof is very high. You've got to prove it beyond reasonable doubt. So I'm saying that to rush to put the people before court, the way they went, giving all kinds of explanations why the people have been arrested, meant that they believed they had evidence to prosecute them. So why is it that we now have this 360 about them?
Yeah.
By the same people who gave the impression that they have so much evidence. And that's what I'm telling you, that there's so many things that go into taking that decision. And it could even be political expediency.
That's right.
There's no point putting these people through trial before we say that they might have spilled the beans.
So you see,
so why don't we just let them work?
You see this as an embarrassment to the criminal jurisprudence in Ghana?
No. I mean, it is open to every government. I mean, every government will have an attorney general. whether you like it or not. It's even a constitutional provision.
Right.
He is the only minister whose position is guaranteed under the Constitution, that there shall be an Attorney General who shall be responsible for blah, 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 blah. So every government is bound to have an Attorney General. Every government, every Attorney General may exercise this.
Right, Honorable Aikoto is the former Attorney General of the Republic of Ghana. We are grateful for your time on today's big story. Unfortunately, our line is not too good, and we might not be able to continue our conversation. But, Alfred, I'm interested in your interaction with the lawyers of some of the alleged accused persons. You spoke to
Frank Davis.
You spoke to Frank Davis, and you spoke to. What did Frank Davis say?
Well, they all spoke the same language today as they've always since this trial began. They said that this was to be expected. In fact, they mentioned that even a day after Nayeli was convicted in the UK, the prosecution should have been drawn to the fact that their clients, that's their point of view, that their clients had nothing to do with it, especially looking at the fact that, again, I'm quoting them here, Nayeli hadn't mentioned anyone's
names. Exactly.
Indeed, the point they make in this regard is that if indeed their clients had anything to do with Nayeli directly transporting 12.5 kilograms of cocaine to the UK, she would have mentioned their names. And they explained that even though for example, Abio Ashiteama Alaji Dawood knew that Nayeli Ametepe used the VVIP section of the Kotoka International Airport, they were not aware that she was carrying cocaine.
And they can't pin anything to them, really, right? Earlier, our reporter Aisha Ibrahim had an interaction with Dr. Kwesi Aining, who is the Director of Research at the Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Training Center here in Accra. Let's listen to him, and then we'll return to the telephone and speak to Dr. Maurice Ampao.
Glory be to God. So far, so good. We really thank Almighty Allah for His greatness and for all the people who supported me. And I know the whole Ghana was with me.
The Ametepe issue was one that raised a lot of eyebrows. Now we're hearing that the Attorney General has dropped the charges and they're saying they're no longer interested in the matter. Doesn't this raise security issues?
Well, it doesn't raise security issues per se. I think what it raises are questions about Ghana's determination, first and foremost, to fight and resist, the penetration of narcotics and its influences on our lives. Secondly, relates to the perception of our international partners in terms of the dedication and willingness for us to resist the penetration of our society. Now, if you remember, this is not the first high-profile case in which a lot of noise has been made in terms of arrests and possible prosecution, and for which nothing has come out of it. Now, this particular case is very interesting, and I'll come to your security question later on. This particular case is interesting because of the challenges it posed both to our international partners, particularly from the UK, and the robust statement by the British High Commissioner to dissociate the British organizations from having collaborated with the Ghanaian agencies on this particular case. Now, added to that, that the president then dissolved the board. So there was a lot of interest, both domestically and internationally about the outcome of this particular case. Now, the security question relates not so much to what is going to happen here in Ghana, but it relates to aviation security as a whole, particularly that this is not just about the ability of criminal gangs to infiltrate a very secure part of our airport and to actually get out of that place. I mean, this relates to what could have been in that bag. I mean, it could have been any other thing apart from narcotics. Now, if airport security can be breached so fundamentally, and particularly from the most securest of secure places, then I think it raises questions, yes, about the kinds of things that can enter this country, and the kinds of things that can lead this country also.
So are you disappointed in the judiciary system looking at this case in point?
Oh dear, I'm way too old to be disappointed or shocked by any such thing. No. I mean, as I head towards my pension age, I'm just looking forward to other people carrying the mantle and carrying the baton and trying to raise awareness about some of the incentives that allows criminal gangs to be able to use this country. So it is not just a matter of one particular institution that we should be focusing on. I mean, we should be focusing on issues relating to the forensics, in gathering the evidence. We should be looking at the role of law enforcement, certainly of the judiciary. We should be looking at the role of, the prosecution. So it's the whole institutional framework that ought to have collaborated as well as possible to be able to gather the minutest of evidence and to be able to present it in a credible manner for the legal process to have gone on. So I think this is a fairly sad day for Ghana, really.
That was Dr. Kwesi there. Earlier, we apologize for the earlier mix-up, which was an interview we had with Alhaji Dahoud. I'm sure that we'll be playing back that interview subsequent on our bulletins. Maurice Ampao is still on the line. So, Dr. Ampao, I hope that you would hear me clearly now. The phone was disappointing as earlier. Now, we wouldn't have a lot of time to go into the nitty-gritties of it, but for criminal jurisprudence, is today a sad day, or you would say it's not really a sad day when it comes to the legal system?
It's a shame. It's so embarrassing. It's so frustrating. It shows how low we have sunk as a nation. We are lacking the ability to do surveillance, to do credible gathering of intelligence on issues like that. Why should we rush to bring people to court when we have not finished investigating? Why shouldn't we leave these 6 people and monitor them, place surveillance on them, so that we will find out whether they have a link with the major accused person? That's Nayeli. So once you have information about.
So what does this mean? What does this mean, really? It means that Nayeli, it's now on record that Nayeli successfully exported cocaine from this country without an accomplice. That's what it appears to be.
Yeah, definitely. That's what it appears to be. But meanwhile, if the state have taken their time with the little information that they have on these 6 people who were presented to court, they could have followed them, trained them, gathered enough information and evidence before you prosecute them. It's a day of shame. It's so embarrassing. And it shows clearly that there was an agenda, and I predicted it, and that has come to pass. That the prosecution were not ready, the state was not ready to prosecute, and then at the end of the day, they just presented these people to court just to embarrass all of us. And there was so much politicization of the whole trial and the issue. It's a day of shame. And I think that it shows how weak our systems have been. Our institutions have become so weak, and it has been compromised. You can see the way bail was granted, the way the state attorney were not interested in even appearing to defend the bail application, from the way the judge refused to even come to court, and then we quickly granted bail when still the prosecution said that they are still investigating the matter.
Dr. Ampao, does this really mean that it is totally over, that these people can never be brought back to the court to stand trial for the same offense anymore? Is the end of the story?
I think once there have not been any trial, they have not been acquitted and discharged. Therefore, we can once again bring them back. Okay. But I'm saying that we've destroyed the evidence, we've destroyed the trial, and it's very difficult to train these people because now they are aware that they are being trailed, and they'll be cautious and careful about the way they conduct themselves.
Right, Dr. Ampao, we're grateful for your time on today's big story. Thank you very much. Dr. Ampao is the president of the Legal Advocacy Foundation. Afre, let's wrap up. Looking at the case now, the lawyers said that they're happy that it happened, and this is a test of the strength of our criminal jurisprudence. I heard in your interview with Frank Davis that he said that this is a feather in the cap of criminal justice in Ghana, but Lawyer Ampao disagrees. What's your quick thought on that?
I think that I agree with those who say that, before we take people to court, we should
have the evidence.
State prosecutors should have enough evidence. It shouldn't be the case that you have people arrested now, you are conducting investigations. You should have credible evidence before you send them to court, Steve.
That's it. Credible evidence before you go to court. Otherwise, you make a mess of yourself and you throw eggs in your own face. My name is Stephen Enti, and thanks for hanging out with us on today's big story. We'll be right back with an interactive segment. Do stay.